Hello, my viewer. This is Health Now Show, your health friend, with me, Jane Kariuki, and I am a counseling psychologist. And in our previous episode, we looked at types of resilience. We looked at the definition of resilience. And we did not finish on the types of resilience. And today, we are going to continue with the types of resilience, and then we'll move to something different, but still on our topic, resilience. And at this point, even before I go further, I would really want to appreciate your feedback and what you're telling us about resilience. And kindly continue sharing with us on our social media, on our Facebook, Health Now Show, and also on YouTube on Health Now Show. Ask the question. And probably you might have caught yourself and said, probably what I went through, Kube, the way I rose back, it was, or I bounced back, it was resilience. Share with us. We'll be glad to hear and also appreciate even for other people growing as you're growing. And without taking much time today, because I also want us to really get into the depth of this. So welcome, Ruth.
Thank you, Jane.
I would request you to introduce yourself to our viewers, and so that we can go on.
I want to greet you, my viewer. My name is Ruth Njeri Karuda. I'm a counseling psychologist and a specialist marriage and family therapist. Happy to be here today. Thank you.
Yeah, asante sana. And thank you again for honoring to be here and to share with us this very important information. Yeah, we talked about the definition and the types of resilience. I guess you have some more that you, on the types of resilience that you'd like to share with us today. Yes.
Yes, Jane, I have one more.
Yeah, okay.
Last time we talked about physical resilience. We also talked about emotional resilience, and we talked about mental resilience. And there's also one more I would want to share with my viewer, the spiritual resilience. And spiritual resilience is that ability to be able to develop again positive spirit, to rebuild ourselves in terms of our spiritual life after we have been knocked down. I believe that we are also hit down even as we serve God.
True.
And there are times in life that our service to God and the ministry, we find ourselves on the floor. How do we bounce back spiritually? Maybe just to connect with spiritual resilience. One time, a friend, pastor, got unwell, and he suffered some ailment that made him get admitted for quite some months in the hospital. And he had a number of churches, planted a number of churches in Nairobi, about 3 or 4. And at some point in his illness, it was almost thought he's not going to make it. And he had so much investment in the churches. He had mentored men of God, and he had assistant pastors, and he had done quite well. But at that moment where it was said, it seems like he's not making it, the pastor started giving them, distributing churches amongst themselves. So there were 4. So each pastor, assistant pastor, had a church. But by God's grace, because it's God who decides when we live and when we die, he recovered. But coming back, there was nothing for him.
The churches have been taken away.
The churches were taken away. And because these were rental premises, the pastors have started paying the rent. So basically he had nothing. And you know that feeling that there is a betrayal in the spiritual relationship? He was on the floor. He didn't know where to pick it up again. He didn't know how to move on. He has a family to feed. And there's so much in terms of picking himself back. And he had a lot of anger and bitterness, even with the fellow ministers. So that ability to be able to pick himself, thanks to God, today he's a bishop. He was able to recorrect himself, and now he's having, he's overseeing a number of churches, and he's a father figure to many spiritual young
Curiosity
people.
question.
Yes, please.
Did the other pastors come back after he bounced back?
I
Curiosity question.
to be genuine, I've never asked that part. I never asked whether these people came back.
Yeah.
But one thing I know is that after forgiving them, they still fellowship. However, I don't know whether they still came back. But I know he forgave them because even as he talks about it, he doesn't have pain anymore.
Okay.
But that being able to pick self back in terms of even reconnecting back to the ministry and to service to God is resilience. So that ability to be able to develop positive spirit after a setback in the ministry is spiritual resilience. Being able to connect with God again after we have gone through a hardship time and we have trusted God. Probably it's healing, and God's healing changes to our perception of healing. We are praying for a sick person, a relative, a loved one, and God's healing becomes death. And our healing, we were fasting. We were, I used to go to Karura for fasting. Those years that Karura was. And we have gone to Karura, we have done fasting, we have engaged people in prayer, we have gotten in social, group prayers, praying for healing, and God's healing takes place, but not to our wish. There are so many questions. We feel like our faith is not strong enough. It's like we did not connect with the supernatural being, with God, and things have failed. So picking those pieces again, where there is even mockery around the God that you worship, should have done something different. Didn't we hear you say that all things are possible through Christ who gives you strength? So being able to pick self after such a situation is spiritual resilience. That I can bounce back and serve God and adapt and continue with life even after that hurtful situation. That I can get back in a ministry, believe in God the way I did, walk with God, trust God, encourage others to trust God. It is work in terms of spiritual resilience. So that is another type of resilience that we require, because as Christians, we are hit. We know men of the Bible who are hit and they needed to pick themselves up. Look at Elijah. After killing so many gods of Baal, he gets to a point of depressed state and he wants to die. He's even forgotten how God has used him. He doesn't have spiritual resilience. All he wants is to die. Until God comes and tells him, wake up, eat and drink. The journey is still there.
Yeah.
So we need to pick ourselves up like Elijah,
Yeah.
even at those moments that we are lying low and we feel like all is lost in our spiritual battles. Right.
Ruth, I hear you. And then I'm wondering, Ruth, what are some of the signs that, show resilience? Would you like to share with us?
Right. Yes, there are signs that shows that one is building resilience. Because when we talk about resilience, we're talking about building it.
Yes.
And when we are building, we start with foundation. And we lay one stone after the other, doing checks and balances. And one of the signs that we are building resilience is developing a survival mentality. And on that ground we are at, there are chances of giving up. But the moment we start developing survival mentality, that it is not good as I would wish, I am not where I belong, things are not working as I would expect, but I have little strength to wake up, crawl, and move on, building a survival mentality. Whether it is crawling, whether it is walking, even if it takes ages to run, I am going to pick myself up.
There is something going on. You are not still.
Very
you are
true.
moving.
Right. Those baby steps that comes with the survival mentality, I am going to fight. I maybe when I talk about that, I can remember one time during the first bomb blast, the
1998.
American embassy.
Yes.
There is a lady who kept being talked about. Unfortunately, she never made it. But you could hear her even calling. People would say they can hear her calling. And she was so determined, even under the rubbles, to pick herself up and be able, she wished to live again. That survival mentality, keeping holding on. We've had people in crisis situation, and they keep holding, even in the darkest time, with a survival mentality, feeling that it's not good, it's not working, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
True.
Right.
That is one sign of
That is one sign
of resilience.
Right.
Yes.
The other sign is when we start developing problem-coping skills or problem-solving skills. That at that moment we are on the ground and we are knocked down. We start now developing within our system, our mind, our thoughts, some coping mechanism, some problem solving, constructive, because you can have different ways of coping, but some positive problem solving skills that I need to pick myself up. I've been left by my spouse as Ruth. There are bills to be paid. I need to start coming up or developing some problem solving skills. Children need to be paid for school fees. Life has to continue. We have to eat. So that little energy to start developing some problem-solving skills is a sign of resilience. Because when we are knocked down, even the ability to solve a problem, the simplest problem becomes a challenge. So when one starts now developing that problem-solving skills is a sign of bouncing back, a sign of resilience. Mm-hmm. When we are able to start now having that ability to have self-compassion, when things happen, we don't accept ourselves. We are not kind with ourselves those times that we are down. So when we are able now to start developing the self-acceptance, the self-kindness, we are able to have compassion, we are not beating ourselves so much, we can be able to appreciate the little that we are able to do is a sign of resilience. Because sometimes we feel like, I am not doing anything, I am not moving. So even the statement we make when we are communicating with other people is like, no, I'm good for nothing, I'm not moving anywhere, nothing is happening. We are so down that we don't see anything that is good about us. So that moment that we start picking good things about ourselves and we can be able to have compassion is a sign of resilience. When we are able even to stabilize family balance, because knocking down comes with family instability.
True.
You realize a family that was united is now divided. Each person is having their own way of life. A family, the Bible says that prays together, stays together. It's not praying together anymore. So when we are able now to start coming back, to develop some family connectedness, to build this relationship that we can talk, even if we don't converse for a long time, we can engage in some conversation. It is basically a sign that we are bouncing back as a family. When we can even be able to talk about that crisis without telling each other, you shut up, don't talk about it, let's forget it, without actually pushing it away, and we can be vulnerable to discuss it, is a sign of a bounce back. It may be baby steps, but the family is slowly coming back to its form. That's also a sign of resilience. So basically, there are those signs of resilience. For children, when they are able now to even appreciate loving going to school, because even children are knocked down. And at that point, maybe if they are school going, they don't want to go to school. There's no value of academics anymore. So when this child now starts developing some interest, even in schoolwork, wanting to be in school, positive thinking about progressing in school, even when they have failed in exams, they still can be able to appreciate that they are making baby steps. When they are able to now enjoy that academic journey, is a sign of resilience. So holistically, when this young man, this young lady who has been left, a relationship broke, and they felt like never again in life would I want to engage myself in a relationship. When they start feeling that they have healed and they can now be able to make some steps towards developing new relationship, is a sign of resilience.
I hear some say,
Yes.
now I'm ready to date again.
Perfect.
I hear some people say like that.
It is true.
Yeah.
And that is a clear indication that they have been able to put things together and they have been able to pick their pieces and they have adapted and they are ready to move on.
Those are the signs of resilience.
Resilience. Pillars of resilience.
Yes.
Yes, they are there. And every building has pillars. If it has to be strong,
Yes.
it requires pillars. If you want to build a story building,
Yes.
one of the things people ask, are the pillars strong? So for us to be able to bounce back, and not only bounce back, but keep ourselves up, we need to have the pillars. Remember, we are building, so pillars are key. And one of the pillars of resilience, Jane, is self-awareness. Am I aware of myself? At that moment, I'm on the ground. Am I aware of my emotional state? Am I aware of my mental state? Am I aware of my spiritual state? Am I even aware of my physical state? Because all those areas are affected. So the first pillar of building or bouncing back or building our resilience is awareness, self-awareness. And in that awareness, it also helps us to be aware of our strengths. Because the fact that we are down does not mean we don't have strengths. And it's good to connect with our strengths. There's something that I like when we are able to track back and look at our greatest achievements. Those moments on the ground, we don't remember we have any achievement.
And we have them.
And we have so many of them.
Yeah.
So even not dying when somebody died, it is our greatest achievement. Because people commit suicide. That drive force, that there is life, even when things are that worse, is an achievement. And I can actually hold on that as a strength and a pillar of resilience. So getting to connect with ourselves in terms of the strengths that we have, in terms of the weaknesses, because again, they are those part of our weaknesses. When we are able even to relate with ourselves and understand, in this situation I am in this painful experience I am going through, in this situation I need to adapt, what are my weaknesses that can actually interfere with my bouncing back? So awareness is very, very important. That awareness even of our own motivations. What is this that is motivating me to be able to bounce back? I remember at some point, one of my awareness was, I have children to take care of. I'm motivated. I have boys to take care of. And I remember one of my son saying on the burial day, and when they are reading the tribute and say, Dad, we are going to take care of Mom. And I felt myself saying, I want to make your boys get to where you would have wished them be. That was a motivation. I am on the ground, but I'm aware there's something that is motivating me to bounce back and move on. So that awareness is very important. Constant checks and balances of our emotions as we bounce back. Connecting to what you're feeling at any given moment. And even challenging that feeling where needful. And working towards improving it is one of the pillars of resilience, self-awareness. The second pillar, Jane, of awareness, of resilience, is feeling in control. Most of the time when we are bound, we are hit on the floor, or we find ourselves down, we tend to think, what are people thinking? And sometimes we are waiting for so much of external support, which sometimes comes and other times don't come. You can be sick and nobody comes to check on you.
True.
Yet you are very good in checking.
Other people.
and how they are faring.
Yeah.
But you are in the house for months or for years or for a year or 6 months, and nobody knows where you are. And at that moment, you are actually asking yourself, really? Do I have friends? Do I really matter? We operate from external. And sometimes some of that external influence is not within our control. So when we talk about feeling in control as a pillar, is knowing what is within my reach. What am I capable of tapping within self to deal with this situation I am in? So it is good to hear, but don't concentrate on those external forces. When somebody hits, I am a football. I love football. I used to play football in high school.
Okay.
But I love football. I have also boys that love football.
Yeah.
So we have supporting team. And I always see a footballer, when they are trying to score a goal and it hits the post and inatoka nje. They have a way of picking themselves up irrespective of the cheerers that are out there. Because there are cheerers who are so happy that you have lost. Others are feeling bad that you have lost. The moment the concentration shifts away from the cheerers to feeling in control, that I'm still the same person who scores, and therefore the ability to score is still within me, it is a pillar of resilience. And I can be able to say, I know who I am. I know what I have. Can I be able to pick that which I have to be able to bounce back? Concentrating on the feelings of one being in control. The other pillar of resilience is support. Building strong and healthy support system, connections that are strong. I always say it is not a weakness to tap a friend when you're on the floor if you have one. Because there are times we can't do it alone. We need support from each other. So tapping that friend, looking for support system, connections that are going to help you pick yourself up. People you can hold on to get back to your foot again is important. But again, being careful what this network are you getting into. Because if there are people who you are struggling with on the floor, you're all down and you are looking at those people as your support network, you are likely to remain there.
True.
So get networks that are strong, social networks, social support, sometimes even seeking for help. It is not a weakness to seek for help when you find yourself so much pushed on that place you are at and you need to pick yourself up. So it is important to do that.
Somebody said that your networks are your net worth.
Yeah,
And
right.
I believe that is true even when you're looking at the social networks that you're having. It may not just apply to financial networks, because I believe what you're saying is that that person that can support you brings a lot of value to you at that point, at that particular point. And that is why you are saying you may not really associate so much with the people who are on the floor with you to support you.
Right.
We would need somebody with, higher in terms of the strength. Okay, kindly continue.
Very, very true, Jane.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you get social networks that are not, you never expected them. People you never thought would be your social networks. I remember at that moment of being down, my reverend really walked with me. She was busy, but she would get me out of the house. I never realized how important going for a coffee when you're that low moment is. And she would literally come and pick me from the house. She would wake me at 7. And I'm wondering, nini baya na mchungaji? What is wrong with my reverend? Doesn't she have something to do? But for a whole year, she kept checking on me and knowing, how are you doing? How are you faring? Sometimes she would actually pick me for a coffee date. And it helped me a lot. The social support I never expected. So be open and be flexible, even to those social supports. Sometimes we push people away and they can be our help. So being open and to those social networks is very important. and of course, variable social networks.
Yes, yes.
That also shares our common values.
Yes.
Because networks are many.
Yes.
So check which is the network you are looking for.
Or what is in line with your values.
With your
also.
values,
Yeah.
yes, very true. Right.
Okay.
The other part of pillar is, connecting back to your spirituality. I want to imagine this is a program that is viewed by different people who may not be Christians.
True.
But they have connectedness with their spirituality. We have Muslims.
Yes.
We have other people.
Yes.
So connecting back to the source of your strength in terms of spirituality. For us, Christian is about connecting back with God.
Yes.
I love a prayer that is made by recovering addict. The serenity prayer.
Yes.
That says, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. It is such an important prayer at that point that we are down, that there are things we cannot change, and we only need God to give us strength and ability to understand that it is not about changing, it is about adjusting. Courage to change what we can. Situations have put us to where we are. How do we change what we can? It can be even lifestyle. Maybe you lived in a 2-bedroom house. You require to move to a 1-bedroom house to be able to pick yourself back again. Courage to accept the things that you can change. Maybe you need to sell your car and repay some loans to be able to bounce back again. Courage to change what we are able to change. It requires God's guidance. So connecting back with our spiritual sources is very important as a pillar of bouncing back. My son, when the dad died, and that day he was picked from school, sometimes it's also good to teach children some of these things. I used to talk about serenity prayer just in our casual sharing in the house. I never thought it was making any meaning. But when he came from school, he was in Form 3 then. When he came from school, I think the person he thought is completely in the worst state was the mother. So he found people full in the house and he greeted and he came and hugged me. But that moment he was hugging me in pain, he said, Mom, God grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, courage to change the things we can, and to know the difference. I think for the first time during that day, I felt somebody has spoken to me. And that boy reminded me that at that moment of lowness and being on the floor, there is one who gives courage. There is one who gives wisdom. So connecting back to our spiritual source is a pillar in resilience, building resilience. Because it is only then we can be able to know at that moment of helplessness, there is somebody who is there for us. And probably we can say like what David said, that the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Even in that situation, we can be able to connect with someone who cares for us. That is key in terms of building resilience. We can't do it alone, but we have a supernatural being who cares for us. I think the last bit I want to talk about in brief is reframing negative thoughts. When we are on the floor, we have so many negative thoughts. There's so many things we think about our situation. So many negative thoughts. Depending on where one is coming from. There are people who may think even, maybe I'm bewitched. Maybe someone is working against my fall. Probably I was I am being punished. Like one person who told me, God is punishing them. Negative thoughts keep coming in our minds. If we are going to bounce back and successfully move on, we need to reframe the negative thoughts that keep coming at that situation of hardship. And replace those thoughts with positive self-talk. Telling ourselves something positive, even when the situation is that bad. So reframing our negative thoughts to positive thoughts is very important. I'm not lovable. That's why this girl walked away from me. That's why this young man refused.
I don't have money.
I don't have money. I am so tall and slender and dark.
Yeah.
Maybe that is what they... So, those negative talks.
Yes.
Probably my looks are not appeasing. All those negative talks.
Yeah.
Maybe I was not destined to success. All those negative talks, reframing them to positive talk is another pillar in building resilience.
And I think that is very, very important, because I guess so many people are struggling with that one. And probably you can look into the camera and just speak to somebody who is probably having a lot of negative thoughts, a lot of negative self-talk. So probably you look into the camera and just speak to someone.
Yeah. My viewer, as I said when I was beginning, I said life is a journey. And in this journey, when the life looks like a road, there are bumps, there are potholes, there are sets and desets. And those moments that we are on the floor, we would have hit a pothole and found like all is lost. And it is good to pick ourselves up. And one of the key things is when we develop a positive mindset. There are so many reasons to feel negative about our situation. But the moment we consciously decide to take life situation from a positive point of view, it's very important. Even when we have lost part of self, we have lost whatever it is we have lost, it is important to pick up ourselves by changing our thinking patterns. And the moment our thinking patterns changes, we are able to see some right in whatever situation that we are going through. And I believe with that, we can be able to get ourselves out of those situations or adapt if that is what is needful for us. Right.
What I'm liking so much is that each one of us, we have one time or other been on the floor.
Very true.
Literally and otherwise, in different aspects of our lives. And one thing that you're really bringing out is that there is hope.
Very true.
It is possible. And I guess that is very, very encouraging to all of us, that it is very possible. Probably you have a parting shot before we close. Kindly share your parting shot.
Right. My parting shot is, as Jane has said, we all have had our share of situations that have knocked us down, and we are not the first ones. Go back to the Bible. Many people were on the floor at one point. But the important thing is learning how to bounce back. And when we find ourselves on the floor, let's pick ourselves, dust ourselves, re-energize ourselves, and move on. There is a brighter future ahead of all of us. Because the Bible says, I know the plans I have for you. Plans for good, to give you a future and a hope. So even in those low moments, there is a hope for us.
Amen.
Right.
Amen. Ruth, I'm sure my viewer is wondering, where can we get Ruth? Because as a viewer, I would want to share. I would want help. As you said, somebody can seek help when they are on the floor. Somebody is saying, I've lost this property. I've been on the floor. I've lost this election. I'm on the floor. I would need some psychological support. Where can they get you? What are your contacts?
Right. Where can somebody get me? I have a private practice office. I said I work with the church, but I have a private practice office around Eastern Bypass, just past KU Referral Hospital. There is a petrol station, total petrol station, and a building named Milestone Business Center. You can find me there, third floor. My contacts are 0722 872783. 0722 872783.
And I guess those who may not be able to come physically, you also do telephone counseling.
Yes.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I guess you also do that.
Yes, we do. I do telephone counseling. We also do online Zoom counseling. So at least with the advancement of technology,
Yes.
we can be able to reach somebody wherever they are.
Yeah.
So we can do Zoom session or we can do telephone session.
Okay. Thank you so much. I can't thank you more.
Absolutely.
This was such an important and very informative session. I really appreciate and thank you for finding time to come and share with us and share with our viewers all this. Okay.
Thank you, Jane, too. I'm happy to be invited here.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind to come again because I believe I'm also sharpened, even as I share with my viewer.
Yeah.
I'm also being reminded some few things here and there.
Yes.
Right.
You
I'm
can
also
be sure
grateful.
I'm calling you back on a very important one. Yes, I'm sure we are going to do it very, very soon. And thank you so much. May God bless you. Thank you very much. My viewer, that is all the time we had today, and I believe that you have picked something. And I will remind you, kindly share with us on our social media platform, on our Facebook, Health Now Show, and also on YouTube, Health Now Show. And I believe that we'll be able to support one another, to grow together, even as what we have been told about the networking. If you have any question, kindly get in touch with us on the number on the screen, and we'll be able to help you and support you further. Thank you so much. May the Lord bless you even as you bounce back. God bless you. Bye.